In today's episode, we are discussing the hearing to compel evidence on May 30th. Your hosts, Kim and Carlos, have two different opinions about this case. Kim thinks Bryan Kohberger might be innocent, and Carlos thinks he might be guilty. Who do you agree with? Today, we are debating, did Payne throw Mowry under the bus? Were they really able to identify Bryan's car and his routes of travel? And will Cy Ray be able to use evidence to prove Bryan's alibi? As always, everything we discuss is for entertainment and is speculation. Please like and subscribe, and definitely join our discussion in the comments.
If you're ready, let's get into it. Welcome back to Typically Unique. I'm Kim Aponte, and I'm here with my husband, Carlos.
Hello.
We're talking about the Idaho 4 hearing that happened on May 31st. It was a motion to compel hearing, to compel evidence that the defense is still trying to get. Both watched the hearing together and came away with some different ideas. We're going to get into it, but we thought we'd start with our takeaways after watching the whole entire thing. Did it change your thoughts on the case so far?
On the case, no. I don't think it changed my mind on the case. However, there was a lot of things said in the hearing that I thought, should have been provided. And it was interesting to hear how that whole thing ended up playing out. I think we see it a little bit differently, but it goes back to what I was talking before when I said, why can't they just turn over everything? Just give them everything and let the defense sift through what they want to sift through. If they have specific questions, let them ask the questions, but, just give them everything and take all this sideshow stuff that's going on right now. Just take it out of it,
Yeah.
And, for me, I don't think anything changed as far as me believing that they have the right person in custody, but it looks like it's going to be a tough row to hoe if a lot of things weren't done probably by the book. It's going to add problems to prosecuting this case going forward.
Yes. I agree with you. We agree on that just give everything over. Like all the work that the police had done should be in the prosecutor's hands so that they could have given it to the defense. And that's the issue.
And if the prosecutors are the bottleneck here, it was mentioned previously, and I know you've stated this a few times, give them consequences.
Yeah.
Give them consequences if they're not turning this stuff over. I fully agree with that. But at this point, nothing has been said that makes me feel like the right person is not in custody.
Yeah, I think we're still at that point. My thoughts after watching it were, some of my thoughts are being confirmed a little bit. I keep waiting for my suspicions to be squelched.
Yeah.
Like, oh, wow, they shut me down on that one.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, they really do have that. And I'm still just not
That hasn't
seeing
happened
that.
yet. Yeah.
So it left me with still feeling questionable about a lot of things. So there were two parts to the hearing. The first part was Corporal Payne on the witness stand. He's the lead detective. And so he was questioned first. First, they started off with his experience. So 6 years is basically what I heard. So 6 years military. I don't know if it was 6 years at the police department, maybe a few short of that. I'm not sure. But he was definitely, there's been a lot of discussion that he was kind of the least experienced, one of the lesser experienced guys on the force, but yet he was the one chosen to lead this huge, massive case. So that's always been a question.
And I wonder, maybe this is something we can look up later. What's the pool they had to choose from? Was it 100 people, 10 people, 5 people? I mean, how many people would, be qualified, who had the minimum, viable product here to actually do this. I wonder what the pool was to choose from that. So that'd be an interesting question. But yeah, it doesn't.
Not sure, but I have heard other names mentioned that had more experience, but they were overlooked. The hearing of his portion of the hearing started out with a lot of questions about video collection. And when the defense attorney was asking, where are these videos that we don't have yet? Who collected them? How are they being turned in? Who's holding on to them? How are they getting cataloged or whatever? He said that there's a digital forensics office that's doing that. He was sure of the other police officer's name who testified previously at the hearing. He mentioned his name several times. That was Officer Mowry, and also mentioned the FBI a lot, but wouldn't. One time, there's one FBI agent that he used the name of, but not at this time in the hearing. And he said he didn't know the names. And I'm sure, like you said, there's a lot of agents. There's a lot of people floating around. So he didn't recall all the names, but she really wanted those names. It just seemed like not only does she want the actual videos, but she wants to know who collected. So that makes you question why. Is she questioning their work? Is she questioning, does she want to ask them questions? Does she want to look at the reports? Like, I know she does look at a lot of communication between people. So if she can get a name, she'll look at their emails, things like that. I don't know. That was interesting. But his response was, I don't know, but I'll find out for you.
And I think to put it in perspective on the defense side, if there's something that she has seen that is questionable, maybe that's a person that they would want to subpoena for trial.
Right.
So I mean, yeah, there's a bunch of people working on it, but this particular evidence could be exculpatory, or it could, cause my client some problems. So I want to make sure that I can, talk to that person, maybe, pre-trial, depose them in some way, and make sure that they're subpoenaed so they could come to trial, because there could be some information in that, or that could be an issue. So yeah, I'm sure she has to do that.
Yeah, good point. Also talked about the kinds of videos that they collected and gave out some numbers. So there were 79 businesses that they collected videos about, and 10 houses. And I thought that was a low amount. What about you?
100%. I thought with the Ring camera boom that is going on these days, that there would be a ton of Ring cameras, especially, this wasn't just a local case. This was, national. So everybody knew about this pretty much right away of what was going on, especially being on in a college town, I wouldn't say on the campus itself, but in a town. So we have one, we have a few.
More than one,
we have more than one. So if something happened in our neighborhood, we would
probably catch it.
We would catch it. So to have only 10 seems a little light to me, but
especially in that area, it was a heavily populated residential area. It's a college area, lots of apartments and houses with, multiple occupants.
Yeah.
And you would definitely think there would be a lot.
I'm surprised there aren't more Ring cameras than just the 10 that they stated.
And just to point out, when you said, everybody knew that this happened, so that would trigger them to, let me go check my cameras. It has been shared a lot on social media that a lot of the college kids knew something had happened that night before the 911 call ever went out.
Right.
So they're all living in the apartments all around and houses all around that area. So, you would think that, word got out right away check for those cameras.
For sure.
Only 10. So
interesting.
And then one of the, and just a question that the defense asked about those Ring cameras, and I'm curious for our viewers' comments about this one. The defense attorney asked if she made the comment like, when you have a Ring type camera, it notifies the occupants. So if our camera goes off, I get a notification on my phone. I can look at it or whatever. And she asked Corporal Payne about that. And, he's like, well, yes, of course that happens. But then that discussion and that line of questioning went nowhere. So I'm like, what was she thinking of when she asked that? Like, why would she ask that? So let me know, because that just seemed like a random thing to throw in there. And I'm sure she had a point.
Yeah. So, probably not now. She's going to show those cards, but maybe she'll show them in the future.
Yeah, little something going on. So then there was also a specific address that they mentioned. So on Indian Hills Road, and that road has been mentioned a lot in this case. And I know that this specific house has been talked about a lot. I cannot recall off the top of my head who exactly lived there, but I do think that it was a relative of somebody connected to the case, a relative to maybe another potential suspect or something like that. So I've heard that mentioned. So it's like, why, they went to that. I mean, if they're doing a canvas, they're going to go to all the houses and collect but why she asked about that specific one.
Yeah, I'd like to
telling.
I'd like to hear that too. Wonder what compelled her to ask. But not only that, if they're looking for Ring cameras, and if they're looking to either notify the family or maybe check on some leads or something, maybe that was a double whammy. Hey, is there anything, do you have any Ring camera information? And, what is your connection to?
And also want to find out.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point. So then with some of the businesses, they asked specifically about the Red Star Coffee Company.
Tell me about that, because I don't remember too much about that. What was the big thing about that?
My radar went up right away when I heard coffee company, because there have been a lot of deep dives on YouTube, on other channels, about all of either the victims, the survivors, their friends, like Venmo transactions, because apparently, I don't know this, but apparently they're public, or if you allow them to be public.
I see a lot of Venmo transactions from other people. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And you can leave a comment, obviously.
Yeah.
So when you pay somebody, when they were looking at these records of the victims and the housemates and everything, a lot of them would say coffee. For coffee, like a lot of them, and like at weird hours of the night, like 3 a.m. coffee.
So are you thinking that coffee is a code word for some?
It could be a code word.
Okay.
Like, we know some people that use some code words for some things. So
right, okay, I like that.
I don't know, but try to figure out what is that? I don't know.
That's a good one.
So this Red Star Coffee Company, and I also think, and I don't know who, that either some of the roommates, I don't know if it was survivors or victims, might have worked at a coffee shop. So if that was a place of employment for them too, that could have been important. Let me know in the comments if you know anything more about that. But when he was asked about that video, he said, I don't know where it is, that video. I don't know where that video is.
The coffee house specifically.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Then she asked about this place, and the hearing was the first time I heard this place. Money's Machine. I guess it's a business. No idea what it is, anything like that. I had never heard of it. I was watching another channel have a discussion, and they made mention of, that's the business that like doesn't have an address, or it doesn't exist anymore, or something like that. Like they made it seem very fishy. So I'm not sure about that place either. But those two businesses seem to be important. And I think they're in the downtown area, like the main street. And that made me think of the area where the grub truck was. I could be wrong about that, but I thought that was the main downtown area. The questioning turned to the affidavit and the warrants because this officer was the person who wrote them. And the defense, her big question has always been, how'd you get to my client? Right. So she's got a lot of questions about the affidavit. And it was all about the AT&T records. What do you remember about that?
Her questioning was all about the AT&T records. Right. Okay. So how they got to her client isn't all about the AT&T records. It's a piece of record. Okay. So when I heard Mowry testify,
that was the week before, right?
Right.
Yep.
When I heard him testify, it seemed pretty basic and simple. And I took it as such.
Right.
Her line of questioning seemed to intensify a little bit more with Payne,
The lead detective.
and ultimately Cyree, which we'll get to in a minute. But yeah, there seemed to be more to it that I had learned for the first time in watching this hearing. So it did bring some clouds into my neighborhood a little bit. So yeah, I think it was interesting. It was something that gave me pause and made me, kind of rethink some things. Because to me, I'm still stuck on the, data in, data out. Well, there's also another saying, garbage in, garbage out.
Oh.
And if you're putting garbage in, you're going to get garbage out.
That's a good one.
So, yeah, I would like to talk a little bit more about that. I think, and the line of questioning was kind of around that, maybe more on the Cyree side, but go ahead and continue with Payne.
She was just asking, what did you use to write these? So the AT&T records.
Yep.
Cell phones. So that's the cell phones. And not only was it, he used the victim's cell phones, the survivor's cell phones, videos, and then he said various other things.
Yes.
So she just kind of at that point, dropped that line of questioning.
So let's stop there for a second.
She goes back to it later.
Yeah, but let's stop there for a second, because if we take apart, should they have arrested Brian Kohberger based on faulty outputs of AT&T records? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I haven't seen the records. I haven't digested them. But you take that piece along with the other stuff, like right. he drives a car in the video, his DNA is at the scene, all this other stuff. I still think that he should have been arrested. I still think that this particular person should have been arrested. And I think there was some banter about that. Oh, the PCA is garbage. No.
Oh, yes. A lot of people have started to say that. And I see your point. Okay. So like I said at the beginning, when he was arrested, nobody batted an eye. Okay. This is the guy.
Right.
And then they say, oh, the car. Okay. Oh, DNA.
Yep.
Okay. If there's cell phone records. Okay. The question comes into play when now it's time to verify.
Right.
And cough up
right.
your evidence. We're having issues. So that's where all the questioning comes in. Now, do we know yet that 1,000% there's issues? No, but this hearing made me think we're leaning more towards that than not.
I agree. I agree. Yep, I agree with that.
That's how I stand
on principle.
That. Yeah.
Not fact yet, but on principle.
Yeah. Things look a little crazy. So then she started asking about the white Elantra, so the car. And we know that the car was his car, Brian Kohberger's car, was identified on his college campus by, I don't know if it's verified of exactly the person, like people have said, like a security
campus
person,
police
campus
or
police, somebody that's like patrolling the parking lots or whatever, someone who works there. found his car. And her questioning was, originally you said this car was 2011 to 2013. Then you extended that to include all the years leading up to 2000 and including 2016. And she wants to know, what did you rely on to make that change?
Yes.
So to me, that's implying, did you just change it because his car was a 2016?
It fit?
So it
Yeah,
must
right.
be a 2016, or was there something else? So I don't know if this was just like a misspeak or a Freudian slip or I don't know what, but I listened to this again and kind of like transcribed it. And he said that information was provided to the FBI specialist, which is weird, because you would think the FBI specialist, who's the car specialist, is going to tell him, hey, I'm looking at this photo of the car you gave me, and there's no way that can be a 2011. It's got the features of a 2015 or whatever, which I think that ultimately was I think 2015 was his car, but he put it on the FBI.
Yeah.
Basically, the FBI told us.
So let me say, I didn't go back and listen to that part more than 3 times. I heard that part a couple times. And the way I heard it, I didn't transcribe it out like you did, but the way I heard that portion is that he changed it to 2016 because the FBI agent told him to change it. So if someone told the FBI agent and then the FBI agent told him, okay, I don't know, but that's how I heard that. So I may have to go back and listen to that, but it seems logical that it changed. And can we stay on this point for a minute? Because we had a pretty long discussion about this. I think someone had said that 2011 to 20.
We were even looking at cars.
Steal my thunder.
Sorry.
I did the homework here. So 2011 to 2013, had a grouping of vehicle styles, right?
Yeah.
So expanding it to 2016, is like, wow, they probably, those model years have to be drastically different.
Yeah.
And I think you had told me that someone had said, and you believed it, right? That these pictures would have to be super blurry. You would have these 2 cars from 2011 to 2013 and adding in 2016 look completely different. It's not even close. You would have to be a fool to think that these 2 cars, these different model years look alike. And you came to me with that information. So what did I do?
Looked up the pictures.
I looked up the pictures, right? If someone's going to say that unequivocally, that you'd have to be 3 blind mice to see that these look the same, I looked up 2011, 2016, and 2013. So we did 2011 and 2016 first, and they had some character to the side of the car on 2016 compared to 2011.
Yeah.
The style looked pretty much the same, but there was character that you would be like, well, wait a minute, this doesn't have that indentation here. It was more.
There were noticeable differences.
Yeah, it was flat and streamlined kind of in 2011.
Very basic, very streamlined.
And then the 2016 had a lot of indentations, curvatures, made it look a little sporty, but the car
shape,
length, weight, width, colors, everything else looked the same except this character.
Windows were a lot the same.
Yeah. So when I showed it to you, you're like, those look a little bit different. So I pulled up 2013, and the difference between the 2011 and 2013 showed that character.
The same.
Like the 2016. So 13 and 16 looked nearly identical. 2011 looked a little different, but 2013, the original, between these years, 2013 and 2016, those cars looked almost identical.
Yep.
And So we had a big to-do about that.
I don't know what years you showed me, but you showed me 2 different cars and you said, tell me some differences between these cars. And I said, well, I see 3.
Yes.
Like I was able to pick out and I'm no car expert.
Right. Between 2011 and 2016.
Those were the 2. Okay.
Yeah. And then I pulled up 2013 and then we looked at 2013 and 2013 and 2016 looked the character was there, the curvatures,
I get that. The question about the car too is if they had his car,
yes,
on video.
Yes.
And that's what they're looking for.
Right.
So they're like, we've got a white Elantra on video. Show us that picture. They showed a stock photo of a car. Like, why would you do that? So that was red flag number 1.
It was a citizen that showed the actual car, right? It wasn't the police.
It was the gas station attendant.
Yeah.
So the gas station attendant for the public. Now, we don't know what the police already had behind the scenes. They didn't share that. But the gas station attendant, and this kind of speaks to how they did their video surveillance too. It didn't sound like anybody went to her gas station and said, hey, can we have your video surveillance? And I'm assuming it was a she. I don't know. This person sat there on her shift because she knew this, like to your point, she knew this event had happened, tragedy. And so she went through that video footage and she saw a white car speeding through at those nighttime hours and she turned it over.
Right.
And there were still, you could see the reflection of her camera, like
on the video screen. Yeah.
Screenshots or whatever. But, she took it upon herself to do that. Thankfully,
for sure.
But we do know they had that. I mean, I don't know if they're saying that wasn't the car, but it was a car out speeding around at those times. So, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, by the time they get not to say that they did or did not do it, the canvassing right, but by the time they're dealing with this, they're getting somebody to run this investigation, getting people out and about out there. For me, if this happened in our neighborhood, I would be looking at the Blink camera within 24 hours. I don't even know if they went out canvassing within 24 hours to go to all these businesses in the 20-mile radius or 10-mile radius that they need to.
I do think there was a time lapse.
Oh, okay.
Between
there
when
had
they
to
went
have
out,
been.
but I told you they had like 120 officers.
That's
a lot of officers.
Yeah. Well, once you get them mobilized,
it wasn't just their local police department. The state police were there right away to help, and apparently the FBI.
So the car video is interesting. I think there's still more to come about that. Maybe not from this
testimony.
Yeah, maybe not from this hearing, but
she did ask him about the first time he looked at cell phone records related to Brian Kober. He said it was after the return of the first search warrant. What does that mean to you? After the return of the first search warrant? Because they wrote the warrants on December 23rd. So this whole hearing made it to me seem like they had 7 days. They named him and arrested him within 7 days. So from December 23rd
to the
30th is when everything happened. And that's right around Christmas. You're doing that wrapped around Christmas? Well, I don't know.
Everything happened. I think everything happened prior to December 23rd. Okay. Everything happened from the day they were called to the scene, which is the day after the crime had happened.
The 14th, November 14th.
So from that day to...
Well, November 13th still because it was after midnight.
Yeah. So from that day to December 23rd, they were doing investigations. Right. So based on all those investigations, probably the DNA, the genealogy, the bushy eyebrows, the white Elantra, the probable cause affidavit was written on the 23rd. On that date, when that was written, they knew he owned a white Elantra. We are looking for a white car. They've been talking about that previously.
Yeah, that was
They
huge.
got his name. He happens to own a white Elantra. So that makes that puzzle piece. I don't know if the puzzle was done correctly, but that puzzle piece fits with everything to write the PCA.
So unless they didn't want to say it was the WSU person that told them, and they found out about it another way.
Yeah, I mean, all you have to do as soon as you get the name, as soon as you get the name Brian Kohberger, they have eyes on him. Where does he live? Where's he at? Watch this guy. We had a mass killing happen.
They did make it seem like he was being surveilled.
Yeah, so they had a mass killing happen. There's a mass killer out there.
Yeah.
They have to get eyes on this person and make sure that this person that they believe that is their evidence is leading them to, we got to keep eyes on this person, because if he does this again and we had his name before that and we didn't arrest him or we didn't bring him in for questioning or we didn't write a probable cause affidavit, this community would roast us 10 times more than what we're being roasted right now.
The university would roast them because it was their business, and a lot of people think that's why there was a rush, because they needed those kids back.
Yeah, but not only that, if whomever goes into another frat house or a college, an apartment on a college campus somewhere, like Ted Bundy, not to bring all that in here, but if they go out and turn into from a mass killer to a serial killer, the whole world, the country, forget the school, John Q. Citizen is going to be outraged. Well, you had this guy's name and 4 more people died? Come on, you got to get this going.
I get that, but this was all about what evidence do you have? When did you have it? Why don't we have it? Basically, those 3 things.
I agree. Yeah,
I'm going to hang on every word they say, like you said, because they're under oath, right? Who's going to commit perjury?
That's right.
So I'm going to take what they say at face value. Okay, so there were 2 warrants that were written. One they called the 48 hours. So It was like for a 2-day, right? That's 2 days time period. And then they just call it the longer one.
Right.
So they wrote them on the same day.
Yes.
And Cyree will speak to that in his part of this hearing. We'll talk about that. So they had questions about that, like who wrote those warrants and everything. So he used the AT&T records from the FBI. She had a lot of questions during this portion about his communication with these FBI agents. Now, he did say that they were set up kind of like a command center, and that the FBI, this particular FBI agent was like, how far down did we
30
say?
feet.
Like 30 feet down the hallway,
30
right?
feet, yep.
So I was laughing at you because I'm like, well, we text each other and we're like on 2 separate couches in the same room,
Right.
So would I text somebody 30 feet down the hallway? Yes.
Yes.
I would. But so she was questioning about messages to this person, and his first responses were, I don't recall.
Right.
I don't recall.
Right.
But then she produced the records.
Right.
Here, let me refresh your memory.
Yes.
But even when he looked at I wish I could see what those said. Even when he read those, he was like, oh, this vaguely makes me remember, but
Do you know why?
why?
So the message, from what I could tell through the line of questioning, was because she gave him 3, I'm assuming, record logs. And he said, the first one, I don't see it here. She's like, no, not that one. The next one. He's like, that doesn't refresh my memory. She's like, it's the 3rd one. So when he got so he's answering these questions. I don't remember. I don't recall. Refresh my memory. The first 2 she gave him wasn't the ones that she was referencing. It was the third page. So I want to make that clear to people that, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He was trying to see.
But to me, it seemed like a gotcha moment by her because she was like, how about the third one?
Yeah.
Like, ha, ha, ha.
Right.
Like,
I didn't take it that way.
Read that one, Jack.
Right. And it could have been, but I didn't take it that way. And then when he got to the third one, he's like, I vaguely remember this because it wasn't, from the way the questioning was going and how he was answering, it wasn't a direct message to this guy. It was a group message, and this guy was in the group.
That was like message number 2.
Okay.
So
but that's how I took it.
That's the one where he was like, okay, well, this is vaguely familiar. Because it was kind of like, to me, it sounded like, let's start a group message. It was basically all that's all the part he read out loud or said out loud or whatever.
Yeah.
But what was interesting is these messages were about December 23rd. Again, that date, like that time frame from the 23rd to the 30th. So a lot happened during that time. And if that's when he's writing these documents, there's going to be communication because this.
You're making my points for me. I don't even have to.
There you go. Corporal, we're trying to, this Corporal Payne said over and over, I'm not the expert.
Right. 100%.
I got the information from the FBI. They basically told him what to write is how he said it.
And so I think that was a big, well, how does he not know? And I look at it as, if I'm writing a PCA and, I have technical jargon that needs to go in that, like this CAS biz or whatever, someone's going to have to tell, what is that system you're using again? If it was a coroner, and cause of death was a medial collateral, what is that again? I'm going to get this information from people.
I get it.
And that is not shocking to me that he had help writing the PCA, and it seemed like it shocked the community that he couldn't sit down and write all this technical jargon on his own without getting help. I would want him to get help and try to get it as accurate as possible.
I don't know. I just keep looking at that part of it as through the lens of like the type of people you and I are, like we try to be high achievers. We try to, learn the most we can and, use best practices. And so, I'm scrutinizing him through that lens. And yes, he may not be the expert, but I'll tell you what, I would have learned all of that jargon and stuff along the way so that by this point, 18 months later, I probably could speak on it.
And to your point, don't like to do this too much, but to your point, I would be sitting over Maury's shoulder because that was a huge piece of evidence. If I'm in charge, I would be sitting, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? Okay. Hey, let's save that. Give me a copy, a clean copy, not this washed out copy. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I would be Carlos would be sitting over his shoulder. Does everybody have that?
I know.
Probably not.
We know people don't.
So I would do that.
But again, that's another point of why pick a person
that doesn't have that workability.
Exactly.
Yeah. I don't disagree.
Okay, so then she started asking him about the cell phone towers, and the next witness that's going to testify tells us all about that. So she's asking him, do you know about cell phone towers? And he's like, very little. And again, I relied on an FBI agent. And this time he named the one person. So this Detective Balance, I think was his name. And then she showed him a map that they had actually created, and he's like, "This is hard to see." And everybody was kind of laughing that was watching the hearing because we're like, "Well, you're the one that made it,"
or it could have been a copy. Could have been a copy,
copied poorly, but I don't know. Still, we like to laugh.
Yep,
I'll laugh at them. And they were talking a lot about routes of the car,
right?
And so they were using a system where they could, put in their data of where the car was located and like spit out these maps.
So let's tell it as technically as we possibly can. So let's try to be the experts here. So she was kind of leading towards, did you use this, this, and this to see where Brian Kohberger's car was? Mm-hmm. And he thought, I think we did, right? Was that his answer?
Yeah, it was more, to me, this sounded like not where the car was, but we're trying to show routes.
Yeah.
Different routes. So
right.
It's not the route.
The point of travel.
But we're mapping different points of travel.
Points of travel. So he thought, and I think this is what the defense was getting to, what spit out from Mowry's work on the 48-hour warrant was damning towards Kohberger, which was one of the reasons why he put it in the PCA.
Yeah.
Fair to say? He wouldn't have put it in there if he was in Montana, but he put it in there because this route that Mowry drug into the CAS system showed him in the area, or potentially in the area, or at least out and about of the night that it happened. Mm-hmm. Right? So that's why
I don't completely understand all that, and I don't know if that's specifically in the PCA. The PCA was kind of like little bits of mentioning, like seen here, seen there.
Could have come from that.
Not
so we're speculating.
See the map. Yeah,
this is all speculation. These are our opinions.
Right.
Disclaimer. So that's what she was getting at, right? And you said at the beginning of this podcast, I believe, why Brian Kohberger? How did you get to my client?
How did you get to my client?
Okay, so this could be one of those things. So that's what I think she was trying to find out. What did you use to produce this document that ultimately went in the PCA that led you to my client? Is that fair to say?
Yes. Okay. I'm just confused because I keep glancing down at my notes and she showed him a map. So we don't know what the map was. She just showed him a map. He said, oh, this is hard to see. And then it was a map that he had created. So not Mowry. Payne created it. And she said, did you save your work? And he said, yes. So that was good to hear. He saved his work because that was a big question with Mowry not saving his work. So see how this is getting all convoluted with
Yeah.
So I don't know anything more about the maps. Okay.
No, I'm just trying to say that
it was used in the PCA.
Used in the PCA. How did you get to my client? And I think the defense was trying to say, is this a good piece of evidence that you should have used in the PCA? It seemed where they were leading, because Cyray's to come, hopefully soon, but we're going to bring Cyray up, right? And he's going to say, this might have been junk. So
I'll just end with the Payne portion with, she asked him how he got the language for his reports, and he just threw Mowry right under the bus. He just named the FBI agent and Mowry because Mowry testified that he had nothing to do with this really until like April. So which one is it?
Both.
Like they both just got up there and contradicted each other.
I didn't see a contradiction.
That's the way I saw it. Like Mowry said, I didn't do anything. I wasn't in charge of this. Payne was. Mm-hmm. I didn't do anything until I was asked to for the grand jury in April. But Payne is saying Mowry did all kinds of work in December. So they both testified under oath to two different things.
Gotcha.
So it doesn't seem like they're on the same page, and who's telling the truth. And why is it important? We have, they're trying to get down to the work. And is it credible? Things weren't saved. Why didn't you save them? Things like that. Mm-hmm. Okay, so then they bring this expert to testify. And this guy's name is Cy Ray. And he went on for 20 minutes, I think, at the beginning about his credentials. He was a police officer. He's worked or trained with the FBI. And he saw a need for developing a better way to like collect information, track information with cell phones, right? Is that a good way to say it?
Perfect way to say it.
Saw a need for that. So he developed software and,
got it.
To be able to do that. So, and he knows all about it. And that's what was used in this case. So he normally testifies for prosecutions, but he's working with the defense.
Right.
So he got up there to explain all about how you would use like AT&T's records that they turn over. How would you use those and, the right way and the steps that you need to do that?
Yes.
Right? Is that what you heard?
That is what I heard.
Okay. A few points that he made was he kept saying, if you're going to use cell phone records to pinpoint where someone's driving, right, or where they're at in an area, that you can't just use like the phone pings off of a tower. You need to make sure you look at all the towers.
Correct.
Okay. Apparently, they didn't do that.
No. So specifically, what I heard Cy Ray say, ooh,
Good one.
was
Say that 3 times.
that you just, because the last episode, you and I talked about the AT&T records, and it's as simple as grabbing those records that you get from AT&T and putting them into this CAS-Biz or whatever. What is it?
VIZ.
Viz.
Yeah,
Okay.
Viz.
CAS-Biz system, and it's going to spit it out, right? And give you this map of where this car or this phone traveled, right? Because it's the phone. And Cy Ray mentioned that, yes, it does that. And it used to do that. And that used to be kind of one of the exclusive ways it was done, but not anymore. Today, you must get a cell phone tower list.
Very important.
From the provider, which in this case was AT&T, so you can account for and discount for other towers in the area, especially in a rural area because they're so far apart. There may be a bigger a cluster of these towers, maybe in a urban area.
Yeah,
but
he
in
called it like the density.
The density. Yeah. And then in rural areas, they may be taking a long time because it takes a long way. It's far away that this tower would be. So it may not pinpoint you accurately depending on the triangulation of the tower. So he says that is crucial to use in this evaluation of the travel of the phone.
Yes.
Does not mean, and I want to make this point clear because I'm going to get to the other part. It does not mean that the original data is erroneous. It just means that it may not be 100% accurate. Yeah. So when I mentioned that, did the AT&T data show Koberger at between 4 and 5 o'clock in Montana? If that's what they dragged and dropped into the AT&T data into, then that's not our guy. But my assumption is that this map showed, because they used
him
that
in the area. They said that over and over again.
So that's that part. So I agree with Cy Ray in saying, let's get all this data. Let's rerun that with these cell towers in there. Let's rerun that. And third part, there is I thought he said a truck, but then he morphed to like a box or something, that would drive the route to verify that the pings that you're seeing on the towers that were in the AT&T report and the towers that weren't in the original AT&T report, but the ones that are in the general vicinity, whether it pinged or not, you can validate that route based on how does me doing a mock drive of that in a truck or some portable system,
right?
How does that?
You're trying to recreate it.
How do you recreate it? And that's the best way to get absolutely 95%. Maybe he said 100. I don't even he gave a percentage, but that would give you your best bet of this is true evidence. Because he even mentioned, not to put the cart before the horse here a little bit, but he even mentioned, he goes, now, if I can run all that information and do all that perfectly, and it shows that the defense's client was in the area, then I am going to
reserve my right to change my mind. Like he made that very clear. And to me, that just spoke on how professional
I agree.
is.
Yeah.
But we got to back up a little bit.
Please.
Because the towers are a big deal.
Yes.
And you made me think of how they kept saying that Brian Kohberger pinged in the area 12 times leading up to the murders.
Right.
Well, if they were only looking at one tower, especially with Washington State University and Moscow, University of Idaho being so close together, could you be pinging on both towers?
You would think.
At the same time. But if you don't look at that other tower, you wouldn't know that.
Sure.
So I think that's probably what they're trying to prove. That makes logical sense. I don't know. So, of course, the defense attorney asked, so he has looked, the CyRay has seen the evidence in this case. So he has looked at these maps that they have produced, and he's looked at, what has been turned over, what they have access to. Okay. So he's been able to analyze them.
Right.
And he said he did not see that they used a tower list.
They did not. Yes.
But then you and I were talking a little bit. It seemed like he contradicted himself, which please clarify in the comments if you caught this too. Later on, he said that they did have a list. Oh, there was 4. Later on, he said there's 4 different versions of tower information, but there was a month that was missing. So it's like, which one is it? Did they not have the list, or they have a list, but a month is missing?
So my understanding of that, and I know what you're talking about, is the second warrant, which Mowry could not successfully use in the CAS system. The first 48-hour warrant, he was able to put it in. Okay. The longer one, which they broke down by months.
Yeah, because it was like 6 months or something.
Yeah, he said there was some, we did have some months. And you did have additional cell tower information on this, because I think he said it's listed right here or something, because he could see it under the L. It's under here or something he was doing. So, but that to me came from the second warrant, which Mowry was unable to run.
Okay.
He only ran the first one, and I didn't get clarification if that was on the 48-hour warrant. So I don't know that. So if you know that, let me know, because I didn't hear that clarification.
Yeah. So this guy, CyRay, he knows all the programs. So he's able to look at everything. So he's pointing out what he's seeing. And, they did the drive testing. Yes, they did it. But there were many questions about missing data. So here's the missing data. And he said he knew right away. He said, I looked at the report, because this guy's been doing this for like 27 years or something. Like he knows it inside and out. Yeah. So he's like, I looked at it and I could tell something was wrong. Now, he did clarify it could be the machine malfunctioning. It could be error, human error, or it could have been someone. And he didn't say it. I don't think he wanted to say it, but the defense attorney asked him, could someone have removed the data? And he said, yes, it's possible.
So let's talk about that for a second. Let me clarify what you're talking about. Now we're talking about either the truck that is going to confirm the route from the cell tower locations and the AT&T report of Brian Kohberger. So this is just the truck, or the portable system that we are talking about.
In a car.
That they're using in a car to verify the route.
Yeah.
And what he said was, I think he said only 2% of the expected data showed up.
No,
or
the
something.
Opposite. So this is 98%. I was going to go on to that. Okay. So he said they had 500. I'll let you go on. Let me just give the information and you can explain. He said that there was 500,000 lines of data produced, but 2 to 3% were missing. Now you're like, wow, they did a lot. He said it's not the amount of data you have. He said that the 2 to 3% were extremely significant locations.
Right.
So it's what was missing that is very important. And one of the locations that was missing was the drive from Washington State University to Moscow. Right? That's the way to get in, and they didn't have drive test data for that.
Right.
So that seemed huge.
So, and if I look at it from maybe the prosecutor side, yes, there's missing data. Let's recreate that again and try to do it. Because all they're doing is trying to drive the exact route that the first data told them to drive. Right? That's all they're doing.
Yeah.
They're not, they're not making up their own route. Mm-hmm. There's like, go this street, go this street, go this street. And if you're missing, that right-hand turn on King or what, but here's my problem with all of that. And, there was a point, and you'll probably get to it, where, this could be junk data and this is, this kind of clears Brian Koberger. Here's my issue. A lot of people have said, I think even the police publicly, that his phone was off during the murders. So where are you getting some of this information? Like, there was a lot of time where his phone was off. It was on here. It turned off for an hour or so, and then it turned back on. Where are you getting the AT&T data? Where's that telling you he's going? It's off. What do the cell towers matter? There's nothing to ping. His phone's off. We're doing the drive test with the portable thing or the truck. What does it matter? His phone's off. There's no data to compare it to. So this has to be well before or well after the crime had committed, or his phone was on the whole time. Because I thought, and we don't have to get into this now, but I thought in part of his alibi response that could exonerate him immediately, like, okay, this case is dismissed. He admitted that his phone was off. That, hey, either off or couldn't get reception because I was in such a remote area stargazing.
Yeah, I don't know if they said that.
Okay.
I don't think they said that.
So that's where I'm getting a little, everything you said about Cyray, and you don't have to repeat it. He is an expert. I got it. I know that he's the man. Probably of anybody in the world, he's probably the guy. But I think there needs to be a little bit more explanation as to, if the phone's off, what are you looking at? What are you testing?
Well, when you said that, made me think of what other digital devices might you have on you that could do those types of functions? Your watches,
I agree.
Does your car have a built-in GPS system? Do you
Not by AT&T, it doesn't.
True.
But
I don't know all this.
Yeah, but
all they're using. Yeah.
But I do want to get back to Cyray, because that is just, I think, where it's like, oh my gosh, there's 2% missing data, and this is, there should be 50% missing data because his phone was off. But I still think he mentions a lot of things that make you think, there's things that could be done and should be done that weren't done, that I want him to be the guy to put it in the CAS system. I want him to be the guy to collect the cell towers from AT&T or the service providers and make sure that all the right ones are there. And I want him to be the one to drive the truck or take the portable device. And I want him to be the one, based on the evidence that they got from AT&T and the FBI, him to confirm it.
So
I want him to do
I
it.
think he probably did.
Well, I don't think he said he couldn't. I think he said he couldn't.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. It is speculated that he was at the house before they tore it down.
Yeah.
So that's why, and he had like a bag on his shoulder. So it looked,
And I want to talk about that too, but go ahead.
Like he was going in there with the machine, right?
You would
like
think,
test
yeah.
things
That's
out.
why I keep doing this.
And
yeah.
he made right. That's why we're making that gesture. He also made it clear that the house and the area is kind of like stands in between a mountainous area. So he made a point that your phones would act differently inside the house than they would out on the road.
Right.
And again, which is so infuriating that they tore that house down, but also a reason why maybe they did tear the house down. So who knows? He also made it clear that everything he's seen so far is in the defendant's favor.
Yes.
So I don't know. This just like blew my mind. So like all this evidence they have seems like it's not showing Brian Koberger anywhere.
Right.
If it's in his favor. And then the 2 to 3% that's missing could potentially show him in that area, but why would you hide that? And that's why he spoke to, hey, we got to get this other 2 to 3%, and I reserve the right if we do that, because he said we can fix this. Yeah. So if it was human error, which he really didn't think it was, because he seemed like he had a lot of trust and faith in the FBI agent that did the work.
Yes.
So he really wasn't questioning that work. He was questioning the machine a lot.
Yeah. So, calibration.
Yeah.
And,
so with the machine they're using, he was very clear. You need to calibrate the machine before you use it and after every time you use it to make sure that it's functioning correctly and you're getting correct data. And they didn't do that. But he's like, we can go back and fix it and redo it. So I guess that's why he's saying, hey, if I do go in and do this, or we could get any kind of results. So,
and I think part of the alibi information, it would have been smart of the defense to say, hey, look at this data, validate that what my client is saying, that I was here. Does this show this? Because we're going to put in a legal document that says, we were here, not where you say we were. And I would be surprised if he did that and the data didn't show that.
If he did what?
If he validated the alibi.
If Cy did?
Yes.
I think so too.
Yeah, so I think he was part of that. So
I think that's what they're using him for, to prove he was in the park.
So to say that from what I've seen, it's exculpatory.
Yes.
It's probably because, hey, at this time I was here. Now, maybe or maybe not, because in the alibi, it said that the phone was off for a period of time. But if I'm all the way over here, it's almost impossible for me to get right. So he's saying, it looks favorable to the defense. I'm all speculation on my part, but I think he was a part of it. And I think that's why he feels comfortable coming forward for the defense.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. The other thing that he made clear was that they didn't map everything.
Right.
80%. So here's how I wrote it. You should map all the data. 80% were not mapped. So between 2 a.m. to 6 a.m., that 4-hour period where they've got all this data that they're using AT&T and all that stuff. They only mapped a handful of times.
Right.
Only 20%. So I asked you, well, how much is 20% of 4 hours? So we're like, what? Less than an hour, right?
Less than an hour.
A little bit less than an hour. It just seems like they're hand picking, cherry picking is what you say.
Yep.
What they want to use for things. So I don't know. I got a lot out of this hearing that seemed questionable, that a lot of information that I thought was, wow, it was interesting to hear how they do it. I didn't know any of that.
And I think, to wrap it up on my side, that I believe Cy Ray is a very strong defense witness. Mm-hmm. As long as, if he follows through with everything he said, that I want to go back and I want to take all this data that hopefully the defense will get,
Yep.
And I want to run these tests, and I want to recreate what you did, and I want to do it my way and make sure, so I want to recreate what you did, but then I'm going to do it the right way and do all this. And I think he is problematic. I think, for the prosecution, if he can prove something different, that, hey, Kohberger's phone was nowhere near this. Doesn't tell you where Kohberger was. It just tells you where his phone is. And if this guy is a genius, he would have tied it to a turtle or something else and have it go running around that park that he was stargazing in and come back and pick it up. But if he didn't think that well ahead of time, and took it with him to wherever he went that night, all it's saying, all this information is saying, and that's why I got a little hesitant when he said it's exculpatory. All this
He did use that word. He said it's exculpatory.
All that is saying is this is where your phone was. Doesn't tell you where Kohberger was. And if this guy is some genius who is going to make police forces look like a fool because I know how all this works, that would be the smartest thing to do.
Yeah, true.
So, but I'm not saying he's that smart or did any of that.
His specialty was in cloud forensics. So he does have a little bit of understanding how that works.
That's why. So at the beginning of this, when you asked me, what are my thoughts on the case? That's my ending line to this is, even though this was a good hearing for the defense, it's not telling you whether Kohberger did it or not. It's telling you where his phone is. And if this guy's a genius that they're making him out to be, he could have done anything with that phone to try to throw people off. So to me, I think they still have the right person in custody.
I get that. And that's going to be the IGG, which I think they had a closed part of the hearing the second half of the day, and we all think that was probably that part of the hearing, so we weren't allowed to hear that. So can't argue about that right now, but this just made it look like, I think BK knew to ask for Cy Ray because he's a forensic data guy. He knew who the expert was to come help.
Oh, that's nice speculation. I like that.
If you're trying to prove your whereabouts, and if the police are using that as evidence to show you did something, that's a huge part of what they wrote in their part. You have to, their answers to these questions, I thought were not good enough.
Yep.
They weren't accurate. There were some contradictions. There was a lot of, we don't have it. I don't know. Go find it yourself. I don't know.
Yeah, and I agree that there, the way this hearing played out, I think it played out well for the defense. Even at the end, when Cy Ray was done testifying for the defense, they asked the prosecution if they said nope.
They didn't have any questions.
No,
They're like, we can't mess with that.
Yeah, which to me, I thought was the perfect move to make.
Probably.
But I still think it speaks to that this was a good hearing for the defense. Let it sit there.
Yeah.
To me, as a casual observer, maybe not so casual anymore because we're doing this podcast, but it doesn't say whether Kohberger did it. It's just telling us where the phone is.
Yeah.
And if this guy's some genius, and I want to leave you guys with this, if he is some genius, it would be a smart move to do something to throw people off. Don't know if that happened or not, but I think we got a long way to go on this. I think there's a lot more that we can talk about of other rumors that are out there.
Yes.
We can do that maybe in the next episode. And if a hearing comes up, I'd love to talk about it. It's just funny how we see the same thing and see it just slightly differently.
Different ways.
Yeah.
But we know all of you have your own thoughts and opinions too. So please let us know what you thought after watching the hearing. If you agree with any of our ideas or can correct anything for us, or just leave a comment for us. And make sure you like and subscribe if you haven't. And we'll see you on the next episode.
Bye.
Bye.